Hello everybody and welcome to video 3 in my Finola series. I am going to do a reduced version of chart C here with you all today based on these 7 spaces that I have here. And this is a version of the chart that we have in Finola, and it is a version of chart C. Just to remind you that each of these columns is read from top to bottom, like so, in the order that they come in. So in this case, every single regular space there will be done in order. This will be the second column, and then this will be the third column here. So we have 1, 2, and 3 at the bottom there. Now these symbols are, of course, unique to my patterns, but they are starting to spread around. There are other people using them. So who knows, they might be useful for yourself as well if you do decide to design too. But for now, as part of our setup here, I have got a linked 7-upple treble complete. That's this entire column here is called a linked 7-upple treble, and it's got the 7 in it basically because it's got 7 lines. We've got 1, 2, 3, here's number 4, 5, 6, and 7 there on my thumb, and then we have our base here, and that's those 7 squares, and that's the base there. So we've essentially got this done already, and I'm going to focus on column number 2 and then column number 3 thereafter. So column number 2 has got a series of different symbols in it. We've got 4 different ones to work through. We have got our grouping of our grey shapes. We have the black triangle, we have a white square, and we have a light grey square at the base here, which is in fact just our base. So I'm going to start reading from top to bottom as I'm meant to for the pattern. And I know that the first symbol combination there is a couple of grey squares attached to each other, and what we do for that basically is a decrease. So however many grey squares you have in order, if there was another one up here we'd have 3, etc, etc, but however number you have before it's interrupted by something else in the pattern in the chart, that's how many you decrease to create your pattern. So in this case we've got 2 symbols, so we take the first 2 lines there, as you can see that, yarn over, and we draw that yarn over through like so. So you can see that those 2 lines all the way back from our fabric have come all the way up, and they are converging to make this one loop here. The very next symbol we have along is our black triangle, and that's a yarn over. So all we do for that is simply yarn over like that. And then when we're repeating that sequence twice more, so I'll do that in total here. I've got a 2-line decrease, like so, and I have got a yarn over, and I have a 2-line decrease, like so, and I have a yarn over. So that's that in total, and you can see those decreases, they show up as these little V shapes, these little arrows, pointing right up to the loop that is the result of the decrease there. And you can even see, if I was to pull this apart a little bit, you can see those yarn overs already are giving you little eyelets, little holes there where they were. This one doesn't have anything on the other side yet. But you can see there that there's definitely something happening to the texture, which was very smooth before, is now becoming a little bit more interesting and a little bit more textured. Now, the very last symbol along on our chart here is a regular space, and that is simply a Tunisian simple stitch, really, for those of you who do traditional Tunisian. But if I started using the same terminology in my version of Tunisian, which I call short hook Tunisian because it's all done on a short hook, I figured I'd start confusing people who are traditionalists, because this is done and constructed in a very different way. So I just call this a regular space when I'm actually working here. So we go yarn over and we draw 1 loop through to create our regular space, or as I say, a TSS, a Tunisian simple stitch, if you're working regular Tunisian. Now the last thing on column number 2 here is our grey square here, and that basically shows you where this column is meant to work into your fabric that you have already. In this case we're working a foundation row, so our fabric is only this little loop here. So we pop in, yarn over and draw through, and there we have all of our loops in place. So the return pass, again, because it's foundation row, we start off with a yarn over through 1, and then we just yarn over through 2 the whole way back up. No matter if it's a decrease you're doing or a yarn over you're doing, doesn't matter a bit. It's still yarn over through 2 the whole way back up. Now, some of these loops can get a little bit stiff on your hook, and you may have noticed me doing it a few times already. If you do find that you can't get through, if it's a little tight, just give your hook a little bit of a piston, a bit of a wiggle up and down, and that tends to equalise the the pressure on some of those loops. So if you have a little bit of a loose bit and a bit of a tight bit, they will balance out a bit for you. I find that's the easiest way to negotiate with something like that. Now, okay, so there we go. That's column number 2 complete. And you can see from the chart itself that we're meant to have 3 yarn overs, or 3 eyelets essentially, showing. And we do indeed have 1, 2, and 3 there, are 3 eyelets showing up. Simple as that. And you can see you got your 3 decreases shown on the previous column. Always remember that. If you're looking at this and wondering why your decreases appear to have happened early, this is simply the evidence that your decrease has happened. But this here actually is your decrease. And this guy here, it's the one line that comes off the V is your decrease, but it will show up on the previous row more visibly. Okay, so that is column number 2. Now column number 3 is simply butted off against column number 2, same number of stitches, everything's nice and grid-like. But if you're to read this as the chart shows, you will see that the first regular space is worked off only the decrease, so only the one loop that is resulting from our decrease here. This one is going to work off our yarn over, and then that goes the whole way down. This regular space will work off our decrease, this one will work off our yarn over, etc. Down to our regular space, off our regular, and then into our base at the bottom. So if I was to do that, I would find the result of my decrease, and as per chart or column number 3, I'll pick up a loop in there. Now, depending on how big you wish your eyelets to be, you can do one of 2 things with these. You can either make it into a medium eyelet or a small eyelet, depending on how you wish to do it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do one with a medium, and I'm going to do 2 with a small eyelet version, just to show you the difference in the technique. Now, the medium eyelet is the easiest one to do, and it is similar enough to the chart that we did in the previous row there, or the previous tutorial I did right before this one. So what I do for that simply is to pop my hook straight through the eyelet, right through the centre there, picking up nothing at all. So you're through everything, yarn over, and draw up a loop like so. And that really opens that eyelet up. It makes sure that it's nice and wide and nice and broad. So that's that one there done. Then we have our next regular stitch here, which works off this guy. So we pop into the result of our second decrease and draw up a loop in there. And for the last 2, I'm just going to work through these as if they're the small eyelet, okay? Sorry, I'll take this out of the way so we can focus on this a little bit. There we go. Okay. So in this here, you will notice that there is a little ligament in the top left-hand corner of your eyelet. It existed here as well, we just ignored it. But for the small eyelet, we're actually going to pick up a loop in there instead, and it tends to close down the eyelet a wee bit more. So it is basically a little cobweb in the top left corner of your window. This little guy here. So if you pick him up, yarn over and draw through, you will actually even see when you're pulling, put a bit of tension on your hook, the size and shapes of the 2 eyelets are a bit different. This one's a little more open because this loop is pulled right around the fabric, whereas this is just hanging onto one loop. So all the pressure goes into that loop and the rest of the eyelet stays fairly closed. So once again, we're going to pick up a loop in the result of our previous row's decrease. And once again, for the small eyelet, depending on your taste really, it's not going to make a difference to the size of the fabric one way or the other. I'm going to pick up that little cobweb in the top left corner. If you can't find it with your yarn, by the way, the easiest way to find it is simply to take the 4 corners of your fabric and pull. And if you pull out in all directions, you will it does tend to open that eyelet up enough that you can find that yarn over with relative ease. If you can't find it at all, don't fret, pick anything. You may just invent a new type of eyelet. But in the meantime, that is where we go to create our small eyelet there. Now, as per the pattern, our very last one here is our regular space. So we pop in here, yarn over and draw through. And into our base as usual, so into that. Again, remember, if you can't find your base, simply draw your thumb and your index finger along the fabric in a diagonal out towards the edge. And it will always, always be the last thing your nail snags on before you lose your grip. Always, 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 whatever that may be, that's where you go. So pop in there. We go yarn over through just that. And that there is that. So it's yarn over through 2 the whole way back up. And then you're just repeating that chart as given. And you can kind of see the difference with the eyelets. The medium eyelet really does open up already, but the small ones are here and here, if you can even see them there. They will require a bit of blocking to show up properly. They require a little bit of help to do that. So really it just depends on what sort of texture you're looking for, but either are valid for Finola. You can do either one you like. So there we go. There's your eyelets, guys. I'll see you in the next video in a few minutes. Thanks a million for watching.